Welcome to the Travel Tidbits Podcast, hosted by me, Jamie Weitl, travel advisor and owner of Pineapple Escapes Travel. Join me as I share the latest travel news, top destinations, and expert tips for the savvy traveler. Because after all, travel makes life sweeter. Welcome back to the Travel Tidbits Podcast, where we share insider travel tips, destination highlights, and behind-the-scenes insights to help you make the most of every trip. I'm your host, Jamie Weitl, owner of Pineapple Escapes Travel. Today's episode is all about one of our very favorite destinations, Walt Disney World. One of my absolute favorites. My heart is still with Walt Disney World for so many things. But today I'm joined by two of our amazing agents, Casey Gent and Katy Sieber. Both of them were both on the recent Pineapple Escapes AEP. And this is basically a training trip where a group of our agents went to Walt Disney World in September to train and learn more about Walt Disney World firsthand together as part of the agency. Not only did they explore the parks and the resorts and try the food, but they got to learn what's new and what's next for Disney travelers. I, unfortunately, was originally scheduled to go on this trip, but then another opportunity came up and I ended up being in Greece. But I was just in Walt Disney World in July with my family, and it's still one of my favorite destinations as well. So let's grab your Mickey ears and dive into all that Casey and Katy learned at Walt Disney World this time on their trip. So let's talk a little bit first about the trip itself, what it was like, and kind of what you guys did. So Casey, I'll start with you. Tell me a little bit about how the trip was structured and what you guys did.
So first of all, we had an amazing time. We stayed at the Boardwalk Inn. That was my first time seeing that resort. I loved that area. I loved that you're so close to walking to Epcot, and then that you're right there with the beach club and the yacht club. We walked over toward those resorts. We also toured while we were there. We did Wilderness Lodge and we ate at the Storybrooke Dining. That was definitely yummy. We went over to Animal Kingdom Lodge, and then we also toured Caribbean Beach and the Riviera.
Awesome. That's a great group of resort.
Yeah. Yeah. We got our steps in, that's for sure. We did the Halloween party. So that was so fun. The wait times were so low for us. We hit almost all those big attraction rides literally within just a couple of hours. So that was super fun. And during the Halloween party, we also had a reservation for Beacon Barrel. So we got to try that out. That atmosphere was amazing. It was so cool to just sit down for a second, have your drink, have your snack, but then still be immersed in having fun too. The one thing I will say about that, they are definitely strict with that 45-minute time limit in there right now. And then something else kind of fun that we did the 4-park challenge. So we visited all 4 parks in the same day. So our rules for that were the picture with the icon, ride at least one ride, have one snack, and visit one show in every single park. So definitely got our steps in for sure. But that was super fun too.
I love that. So, you guys had a great overview of the parks, and I know that both of you go individually with your own families and do your own thing at Walt Disney World too. But I think it's different when you're traveling with the agents. Like, you're obviously there with, your travel agent hat on, trying to think about what's new, what's different. How can I bring this back to my clients to make this better for them? So Katy, let's talk a little bit about what was new for you at Walt Disney World on this trip. Like, was it attractions? Was it dining? Was there something else that you saw through a new light since you were traveling on a training trip? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so I do go with my family so often, and I was just there in February and then April. So then this time with my agent hat on, it's good to know and experience all these things, like some of the dining. We don't do as much when I'm with my family. So it was good to see, like, as Casey said, the Beacon Barrel. Like, I did not know there was a 45-minute limit. I thought it was a full menu. It's a set 4-item menu, but the atmosphere is so amazing. So I definitely recommend, especially maybe not for younger kids, but that's something that we can now tell our clients if that's what they want, because it's the hottest, latest thing. You may not want to go there if you have younger children. And then we also got to see the villains show during our 4-park challenge, and that was totally worth it. The characters, everything was just so well done. I had no idea that was even coming, so I was totally surprised, and I loved it. And I love the Disney villains, so that could be why, but it was amazing. And then the Starlight Parade we got to see, and I was personally so excited for that because growing up, I would see the light parade, and that was always my favorite part of Disney nights. And this was even better. It's the newer Disney characters, still with the nostalgic nods to the original parade. It was a perfect blend of old and new. So I really enjoyed that. And then we also got to do the new reimagined test track. I was personally excited for that. I was kind of disappointed, though, because I liked the older version because the child in me liked to design the car. And that is no longer an option.
Yeah, I think that that's what's so great about going on the agent trip. So obviously I go with my family as well. But when you're on an agent trip, sometimes you see some of those things that you don't necessarily notice with your family because you end up doing the same things over and over. And also like things like Beacon Barrel, that would be perfect for an adult group. And there are times my husband and I have gone to Disney just ourselves. And sometimes you have those adult trips that have like a different spin on them than a trip with your family, with your kids. So I think that that's great that you were able to experience those things. And I think it also brings back to the agency like that ability to work with each client individually for what their needs are. And to say, you know, maybe if you have a 2 and a 4-year-old, maybe this isn't the right snack stop for you. Maybe we need to look at something different. But if you're here with you and your husband and another couple, this would be a great snack stop and relaxing and fun atmosphere and fun vibe. And I think that's really what we learn when we are on property like that. And I also think as a client, when you are searching for someone to help you book your Disney vacation, you want someone who isn't just reading from a brochure. You want someone who has been there, who has done that, who has stayed in the resorts, who has eaten the food, who has ridden the rides. And I think it really builds that trust with our clients that we prioritize this kind of training and that we do the site visits, we see the resorts, we know how to match them to what they're looking for. And I just think that's such an important piece of the Disney planning process because it can be complicated and there are so many different things and it's constantly changing. Like some of the things that you guys got to see, I haven't been there since Beacon Barrel has opened. So I haven't been there yet, but it's definitely on my list for next time I go and I know about it. But until I get there, that's really hard for me to explain to clients. So I think that's just a big piece of all of that. But a lot goes into planning a Walt Disney World vacation as well. And I don't think a lot of people realize just how much strategy is involved in these kinds of choices. So Casey, let's start with you and talk a little bit about Genie Plus, the Lightning Lanes, dining reservations, resort choices, all of these different pieces of the puzzle that you have to juggle when we are planning not only for ourselves, but for our clients. And what are some of the biggest challenges that you see travelers face that you're able to help them with when you're planning Disney for them?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that I see my clients or people just in Facebook groups or things like that is with the dining reservations, especially, you know, those, if you're staying at a Disney resort, they open 60 days prior to your check-in date and they open at 6 a.m.
Eastern time.
Yes. So you have to convert that to your time zone, number one, because not everybody's in Eastern time zone. And then it's also your check-in date. So your check-in date is not necessarily your first park date. For some people, it may be, but not everybody. So that's something else you have to think of. And then going into those enchanting extras like your Bippity Boppity Boutique, your Harmony Barbershop, the Savvy's Workshop, those things open at midnight, not 6 a.m. So that's something that I see. Oh, I'm going to book Bippity Boppity Boutique at 6 a.m. No, they're all booked up because they opened at midnight.
Right.
So that's kind of those things that we can help with and going and figuring out, okay, this is your day. We make sure everything is lined up and ready to go.
Yeah, I think that that's really a big part of it. Like, I think it's really easy, especially for someone who hasn't been to Walt Disney World before, to get really overwhelmed with all the things because it is complicated. Unless it's something you really know and love, there's a lot of pieces, and it can be easy to miss like those key booking dates. It can be easy to, maybe stay at the wrong resort for what you're looking for. And that's really where we come in. So Katy, talking from your experience with Walt Disney World, what are some examples of how agents are able to kind of fix these issues and help clients plan the best Walt Disney World vacation?
I think the best is, so when we go, we're there as regular guests. We do not get any sort of behind the scenes treatment, special perks. So we literally go, we're the client. So one thing that I like to do is I like to take all the modes of transportation, including from the airport, whether an Uber would be cheaper. I learned that a minivan is only available to those at deluxe resorts, which is key to know. And that's one of the few transportation options that include car seats. So for those traveling with babies, that is something you could explain that as a perk of staying at a deluxe. The minivan driver was actually telling us that so many times people at the other resorts try to reserve them and they cannot. So that is extremely good to know and pass on. And then I've taken the mirrors because I wanted to know the time frame and all that. And that helps me explain to clients, this is this cost, this is more beneficial. You don't really need to rent a car, essentially.
Right. I mean, I think it does depend on what resort you're staying at, though. Like I'm not going to put somebody in a treehouse villa without a car. Just
no.
Like it kind of depends on where you're staying too. But if you're on property and the buses are easily accessible, you don't need one. Yes.
No. When we stay at a neighborhood resort, we do rent a car and pay the parking, and that is it just makes me want to stay on Disney.
Absolutely.
So that was good to know, especially the stuff with the resorts. There's just so many resorts that clients just want the latest and greatest all the time, but not every resort. You don't necessarily want to send a honeymoon couple to an all-star resort if that's not in their budget.
Right. No, I think that's all really good points. And that's really what we're here for, is to match people to the right resort, to make sure that all of those pieces, their Genie Plus, their Lightning Lanes, their dining reservations, if they want the boutique, all of those things line up so that they match really the expectation and desires that they have about their vacation. And I do want to clarify one thing with the minivans. So if you were looking to take it from the airport, you have to be staying at a deluxe resort. Pineapple Escapes does work with some other vendors that do private drives to and from the airport if you're not staying at a deluxe. But if you are staying anywhere on property, you can request a minivan through Lyft if that is something you are interested in. You do not have to be staying at a deluxe to take it around property. It's just that airport transfer to and from, you must be at a deluxe resort. So, I mean, it's all of those little quirks and things that someone who's very knowledgeable and skilled in Walt Disney World can really help you make the most out of your vacation. And it really is a full-time job to keep up with all of the updates at Walt Disney World and everything that is changing, because it is constantly evolving, constantly changing. So Casey, let's go back to you for a minute. When you think about what you do for clients, how do you take the stress out of their vacation and really make it fun for them without overwhelming them with all of these pieces?
So, the main thing, like we kind of talked about, the dining reservations, the extras, with my clients, way before those days arrive, whether it's the 60 days for the dining and the extras, or if it's the 7 days or the 3 days before the lightning lanes, I check in with them. I'm like, okay, what is important to you? Where do you want to go? If you want to do character dinings, which characters are you interested in? Because I know which characters are at which restaurants. Like I said, we did the Storybook dining. So we got to see Snow White, the Evil Queen, and 2 of the 7 dwarfs. And then we also ate at Cape May over at Beach Club. So we got to see Minnie and Donald and those characters over there. So I know where these characters are, and character dining is definitely popular. So that's something that I'm like, okay, this would be the best restaurant, and I also have 2 small children. So character dining is really popular for us. I have a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. So we always hit those up. So I'm excited for our trip in December to hit some different ones. But yeah, just helping plan all those pieces out before the day comes. You don't want to be 6:00 in the morning. Oh, where do I want to eat? And just trying to figure it out right then, because you're going to miss the opportunity to get some of those super popular reservations.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Katy, anything to add to that?
She kind of hit the nail on the head, especially with the dining. I've gone several times and my family's like, well, where do we want to eat? Maybe if we thought about this 60 days ago, we would have more of a choice and a selection. So I think that is definitely one of the biggest perks. And like she had mentioned, we got to go to these dining places and see, okay, this one, your child wants to see Disney princesses. Well, the Storybook dining is not probably where they want to go. You'll see Snow White, yes, and the Evil Queen, but you're not going to see the other ones.
Right.
And then we went to the Cape May. That was my first time there. That one, I loved it. Just the atmosphere and the way the characters were dressed was just amazing. And you hit the big characters there. And if it were between that and Chef Mickey with me, like those 2 would be where I would send clients to.
For those traditional characters.
Yeah, the traditional, for sure. And so I think that's one of the biggest things is we know where to send them. We know, like, this is coming up, start thinking about it. And you send the menus because some of these have limited menus. Storybook was one of those, but they kind of will work with you, but you need to set that expectation for the clients. So that is one of the biggest things. And then it's so easily to be overwhelmed with everything, because I have a client who wants a Skyliner resort. Okay, that's 4 resorts, but then you add the Boardwalk resorts and that's 7. That is not much of a narrow down. So then that's where like we did the Skyliner tour, and that's what helps. Like for my clients, the Art of Animation or Pop Century would be more for what they're looking for versus the Riviera or the Caribbean Beach or the Boardwalk resorts. So I think it's something like that. We can help alleviate that stress. And just in the parks in general, we all knew the parks to where we did not need a map. So it was good to know, like, we strategically planned our ways around the park for the strategic points, like stay around this point. If we had dining over here, we didn't want to go all the way across the park. So it's just kind of being strategic like that. And you could kind of glide clients through that direction without being so, you have to stay on this timeline, do this, this, and this. So I think that's important.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I've been to Walt Disney World more times than I can count. I honestly don't even know how many times I've been at this point. But I think that's also what makes me a really good Disney vacation planner is years and years of experience. And still, every single time I go, I learn something new. I find something new. I experience something that wasn't there before or that I didn't know about. There's just so much to it. And without that expertise, without that background, it's really something that's very challenging to plan and to help clients plan. And I think that's part of why clients come to us in the first place is they get overwhelmed by all the choices. There's all these resorts. There's all these modes of transportation. There's all these dining reservations. Do I want characters? Do I not want characters? Do I only want princesses? Do I want traditional? Do I want Winnie the Pooh? What do I want? And having someone who truly knows and understands the parks and what's behind them, all of the pieces, when to do what, is really where our expertise and our experience shines because we can help them every step of the way to make that happen. So when clients book with one of our Pineapple Escapes Walt Disney World specialists, so not all of our agents book Disney, not all of them want to book Disney. And mostly the ones that don't, it's because they don't understand the product. They don't have that same experience and expertise. It is something where you really need to go at minimum once a year, but really multiple times a year to keep up with all the changes, all that's happening and build that knowledge base. So when you book with one of our agents here at Pineapple Escapes that does specialize in Disney, what are some of those things that they might not get or understand? We've kind of touched on some of these things, but if they plan it on their own, what are they missing out on? Casey, let's start with you.
I feel like, how to put this in the words, but I feel like, say you were booking a trip with me or even you, Jamie, and just like you said, you hadn't been to Beacon Barrel yet, but that we have now, and you had clients that might had a question or wanted to know, like you could ask us because we had been there. So
Right.
like you might be booking with one of us, but there's a whole bunch of us as well. So I feel like that's kind of the biggest thing. Like, okay, I might not have personally seen this, done this, been to this, ate here, rode that ride yet, but I know firsthand someone that I trust that has experience with that.
No, I completely agree. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we bring as an agency is we have a great group. We really do have some amazing agents. And those of us that are the Walt Disney World people, we know it. And so if you have a question, one of us has done it. So if you come to me asking about something and I haven't done it, I have my team to go back to and say, hey, when you were at Beacon Barrel, how did this work? And tell me about the menu and tell me about this so that you're never on your own. And I think that really is one of the best things that we bring is you're not only getting our expertise, but you're getting our team's expertise. And I love that. I love that piece of our agency and how we work together like that. So Katy, let's also talk a little bit about some of that personal support. So I think a lot of people, especially when you have young kids and you're like two working parents and that sort of thing, like you start looking at a vacation and you're like, okay, I just want to do something fun. But then you start looking at Walt Disney World, and if you've never been, it's very overwhelming. So how do we as Pineapple Escapes travel agents make this more stress-free? What are some of those little benefits that we bring to the table?
The biggest, I think, as you guys mentioned, we are a huge team. So lots of us have been several times, and we all have that expertise. I do not have children, but I know Casey does. So I can be like, hey, Casey, how did your family like this? But working with like clients, and it's so easy to be like, I want a Disney vacation. You think it's so small, but it is so complex. There are so many resorts. Like I said, you just have to narrow down. Number one, we could help narrow down what is in the budget. Number 2, say your child loves animals. Well, then you might want to see Animal Kingdom Lodge. That is something like that. We also know, like with the parades, like we know those times. We could help plan your day to hit these things. And then the special parties at night, like the Halloween party or the Christmas party. A lot of people we found do not know that Magic Kingdom closes at 6. So if you're a client and you only have a 1-day park hopper, like, or 1 park per day versus a park hopper, I would be mad if I were going to Magic Kingdom and it was closing at 6. So that is something we could help tell clients, this is going to close at 6. I would recommend either A, if you have a park hopper, do that park in the morning, go to a different park at night. Or if you have a 1 park per day, do not go to the Magic Kingdom on this day. And this is why.
Right. Pick a different day.
Yeah. So I think stuff like that is beneficial. And then we also got to see several resorts that were going to be undergoing construction. So that is something that we could let clients know, like, could stay here, but it's going to be under construction.
Or the pool's going to be closed.
Yeah, or the
Skyliner's going to be down.
Yeah.
We keep track of all those.
So many things like that. And another thing is we usually get the emails first thing in the morning. So if there's like a special deal that comes out, before the client even wakes up, we could have that deal applied to and they're saving money without even doing anything.
Yeah, I think the price monitoring is a big deal. So that's one thing that I tout to all of my clients is you don't have to worry about it. Like when a new promotion comes out, I'm checking my entire client list to see if it applies to your reservation. And if it does, I'm just going to go ahead and apply it. And then I'm going to email you and say, hey, I saved you $325 this morning. This new promo came out for spring and your dates were part of it and you're good to go. So I think there's also times when maybe you can upgrade for the same price and do some different things. So when those promos come out, our agents are on top of it and checking reservations, like you said, before they're even up in the morning. So I think that's a really big thing, like not to even have to worry about it and to know you're going to get the best price and the best promotion because we're watching that for you. I think that's a big one. Anything else that you feel like we really do well?
I mean, I think too, something that I think Katie and I both can agree on, we're a little bit motion sick. So some of the rides we were like, no, thank you. We know this ride's not for us.
Yeah.
We rode it before. We're good. So, I mean, that is something else that with being in the parks and riding the rides, we know, okay, if you get extreme motion sick, this ride might not be for you because that would be the worst thing is to get into the park, ride a ride, and then feel sick the whole rest of the day. So even like small things like that, once you get there, it's not just all about the pre-planning. It's about while you're there too and stuff like that, I think is important too.
Yeah, I think that's when I think about planning Walt Disney World. So I book all kinds of things, obviously. Like I'm booking Europe, I'm booking all inclusives, I'm booking cruises, I'm booking all the things. But Walt Disney World still has my heart. And I think part of it is because when clients reach out and have a question, I know the answer. And I love that piece. Like if someone reaches out and says, hey, I get motion sick, I can speak to that personally. And my daughter, Anna, we joke that she's thrown up all over the world. So like you have those personal things, like that personal experience and expertise. And like, I love always knowing the answer. Like I know it so well that I always know like, okay, here's your answer. We're good to go. And I can always benefit them in that way. So I do really feel like when you book with a Pineapple Escapes Walt Disney World specialist, you are getting that full experience, that full expertise, someone who is always going to be in your corner, a real person with, you can text me while you're in the park and say, I'm trying to get here. What's the best path? And I'm going to be able to answer that for you. It's not like booking it online and being on your own and having to research everything. You have a real person who cares about you, cares about your trip, and wants it to be the best trip possible. And I think that that's just so beneficial. Before we wrap up, any other final thoughts, Katy or Casey, that you want to share with our group, helping them plan their next Walt Disney World vacation?
I mean, I'll say this. I think that, like I said before, I have 2 small children. So I have a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. So Disney for me is normally being with them in the park. This trip that we went on, being with all adults, was a completely different experience, being with adults versus children. And it truly is, I think Disney is truly just for everyone. You know, it doesn't matter if you have small children or even teens, you can go even as just an adult group and still have a fabulous time.
No, I couldn't agree more. Katy, any final thoughts?
I totally agree. My husband and I went there for our honeymoon.
I love that.
It was a fun time. Maybe not over New Year's Eve.
Busy.
Yeah, but it was a great time. And then growing up, we were going with my niece and nephew every year. So then we started seeing it through that lens and learning that there's going to be a meltdown. Your child is going to have a meltdown at Disney, but there's ways to mitigate that.
Rest. It's called rest.
Yeah, rest. And I think that's also one of the perks too. We could tell a client, this is inevitable. It's going to happen. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. And how to structure your day so that you
could structure it like we structure. So we have a midday pool break. So that way your downtime, it's between parks, and you could either eat at the resort or you get ready and you go to your dining elsewhere and do your nighttime plans. And I find that is really good to know and do, and just have that realistic expectation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so like my kids are all teenagers. I have an 18-year-old and 2 16-year-olds. And with them, even now, I find that having some kind of break in the afternoon is a positive. One, it's the hottest part of the day, especially if you're there in the summer. And so we usually plan our sit down meal mid to late afternoon. So between 2 and 4 is when we're having our biggest meal of the day. I call it lunch and dinner. But that gives us a break. It allows us to sit in the air conditioning, refuel. And a lot of people don't think about that. Like they think, oh, I'll just eat at the standard dinner time or standard lunch time. Well, that's also the busiest time to eat. So if you're eating in that off time, it's a little quieter. And you have that break, that time to regroup when it's the hottest part of the day. So I feel like little tips like that can really go a long way to helping someone make their trip extra magical, skip the stress, focus on the fun, and really enjoy and make memories, whether they're with an adult group or their family, and make the most of their Walt Disney World vacation. So Casey and Katy, thank you again so much for joining me today. I loved hearing about the AEP and having you share your insights about the benefits of booking Walt Disney World with Pineapple Escapes. To all of our listeners, if Disney is on your late 2025 holiday list or on your 2026 travel list, we are already booking all the way through 2026. And we don't want you to go at it alone. So reach out to us at Pineapple Escapes and let us plan a trip for you that is smooth, stress-free, and filled with magic. We would love to help. You can learn more or connect with any of our team at our website, www.pineappleescapes.com. And as always, thank you for tuning in to the Travel Tidbits Podcast. And remember, travel makes life sweeter. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Travel Tidbits Podcast, where we believe travel makes life sweeter. The team at Pineapple Escapes Travel would love to help you plan a trip filled with lasting memories. Visit us online at www.pineappleescapes.com to start planning your next adventure.